Eoin O'Callaghan, who's been on. I think he was even on the Playboy channel. I don't know what's going on with you, but you're
Well,
Everyone likes soccer all of a sudden.
all of a sudden it's like,
What happened in the world?
See, this is what gets on my nerves. It's like people who follow these Olympic events that they've never ever, like kayak or the hammer throw, and they're like, "What do you think's going to happen with that Russian where they dive synchronized diving?"
Yep.
I go, "I don't fucking know." What have we ever talked about diving? Diving.
It's so true.
And now people want to know about
I think soccer's still at a better level of diving.
Slightly.
I just
Yeah. But now the fame, like, so you're what now? You're as famous as who?
Oh, I'm going to say the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins.
There you go.
I think we're on par now. I think.
Is that right?
Yeah, when I walk into rooms, they open the door for me and stuff.
Was it Taoiseach? What are we?
Taoiseach.
Taoiseach, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Taoiseach.
our Prime Minister, but
Yeah.
Michael D. lives in a very
Oh.
fancy house in Phoenix Park. Yeah.
Phoenix Park, is that? Oh, that's right too. That's where they
Yeah,
get to go.
Arsenal.
We have family in Castleknock, which is just
Oh, it's just, yeah.
just around the corner.
Just like peek around the hedge
Yep.
and there it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's funny, depending on the neighborhood that you talk about. If you're talking about some from back home, so we have people in Ballyfermot,
Oh, yes.
and you'll run into people who go, "That's the real Ireland, the beautiful people, brilliant people." I go, also in Castleknock, I fucking like them people. They're all too good. They're too good.
Colin Farrell is from Castleknock.
Is that-
It's an FYI.
Oh, there
you
He's
go.
an Irish celebrity.
Yeah,
So
there you
Colin
go.
Farrell,
Yeah.
if he's listening.
There you
What are
go.
the O'Callaghans? You're Cork, right? You're Cork
Oh,
City?
yeah, Munster, yeah. Cork, Clare, down south, Tipperary.
Oh, that's
Predominantly Cork.
That's
yeah.
beautiful. I love going down to Kenmare is one of my favorite places. And although, again, there was a festival where all the, as they say, the cultures came out and I didn't understand. I mean, the goats are coming and the sheep and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
And I'm like, and the gypsies?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, the gypsies. They can go anytime at all. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. Not a fan.
I have to be careful who I offend on this show. So
Well, you can offend anybody
I
on this show.
gotta keep a white
Go ahead,
word.
Owen.
Well,
Have at it.
I'm taking a look at, and of course, we've got one game underway. So,
34th minute, still zeros.
0-0. Cavani, obviously a massive blow, and his spectacular game beforehand. It's a real shame that he's not playing in this because it just, I think at best they need to keep the French sort of at bay. So this game could be 0-0s into late.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be as open and thrilling as the France-Argentina game. That was end-to-end. It was, Argentina were very cavalier in their attitude. Uruguay don't play like that. They're defensively oriented. They'll be really rigid, really tight. They won't give you any space. Mbappe won't be running 80 yards with the ball like he was allowed to against Argentina. And they'll grind. It's all about a grind with Uruguay, and then obviously the big blow is Cavani because Cavani's the outball. Cavani is the individual magic. Suarez hasn't had the best of seasons domestically, so it's nice the way that they've been able to play alongside each other.
Yeah, because he's on his own today.
He's on his own,
Yeah,
so he
yeah.
has that extra burden of responsibility. Whereas obviously Cavani was able to get him out of jail a little bit. Suarez has been great in build-up play, but the ball's always really been ending up with Cavani because that's where the focus of Uruguayan attack is. So obviously that changes today. So it's interesting to see how they're going to cope with that. But
And the French duo, I mean, Griezmann is up front. I mean, they've got a lot of quality guys in big leagues that can put that ball in the net.
yeah, and also France can even ever so slightly just change things up. Even what you saw in Argentina was against Argentina was Matuidi. Who was playing on the left-hand side, and he actually contributed really well to that game. Pogba played very well. Kante played very well against Argentina. And then, as you said, further up the field, if Mbappe may be struggling, they still have Griezmann. They still have a more direct approach with Giroud. So, you would think on the law of averages that France still have enough to get past Uruguay, but expect 0-0, expect a 1-0, expect possibly extra time.
I can see that. I thought maybe it would end up being a 1-0 game and not a game that you necessarily want to record and show your children down the road.
But it's
maybe.
weird because even those tight games at this tournament have been really exciting.
Well, I think the
for
tournament
different
itself has
reasons.
been,
It's been amazing.
those penalty. Okay, so let's talk about Russia because that to me is the crazy story. I mean, of all the team, and of course all the insinuations about Putin and everything else, and how the reffing is going, but in a penalty kick, it's hard to hide. And that goalkeeper made some saves that, look, I don't know if he'd play the game again but that sport is played for the moment. And in this moment, Russia have been playing so far above what anyone thought would happen.
inexplicably so.
Yeah.
I mean, before this tournament, one of the key narratives was, hey, what are we going to do about this World Cup when the hosts are going to get eliminated at the group stage? It's going to be humiliating.
I thought Egypt or Saudi Arabia might get the odd draw. Like, I really thought that was potentially out there.
Because ultimately, it's not just every journalist was proved incorrect. Journalists base everything on form. They base it on history. They base it on how Russia have been performing in the build-up to a tournament. There was no even hint that they could do vaguely well at this World Cup. Like, they had an absolutely dismal European Championships in 2016. They finished bottom of their group, and it led to a number of their squad just saying, "Okay, I'm done. This is we're in a bad place right now." And you fast forward 2 years in their own country. They obviously opened the World Cup with a massive resounding win over Saudi Arabia. Yeah, that was kind of confidence-inducing, I imagine. But they also lost the group game 3-0 to Uruguay. That was a much better reflection, I think,
of
where this Russian team is.
Yeah, right.
But you fast forward, they get another inexplicable victory over Spain, who were really, really poor.
They must look at that. I mean, maybe they'll never look at that recording.
Yeah.
But that was bad.
It was terrible, and it's weird. You mentioned penalties. I think it's an interesting thing that we've had 3 penalty shootouts already, and for the untrained eye, you can understand it. Shootouts are a weird thing. A lot of people will talk about good fortune and good luck, and how it's a lottery, but it's not that at all. There are people who've been studying penalties for a long time, going back decades, who will look at patterns. And they always talk about the most important moment of a shootout is the coin toss, because the team who shoots first has a 60-40 advantage. Now, we've had 3 shootouts so far. The team shooting second have actually won all the shootouts. Yeah. So it's worked in reverse.
This has gone so against so many things, and even listening to so the English. All right, England. So they win in the penalty kicks, which now, because at first they said, well, there wasn't great expectation, and now they can't control themselves. No, they really can't.
This is the fork in the road moment. What do you want? Do you want low expectations, or do you want football's coming home? We're going to win this?
Oh, coming home. That's right too. Isn't there like a song or something?
It was from the European Championships.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny. I don't want to kind of whatever on English fans, but in Euro '96, so the great, amazing pop band, the Lightning Seeds, were brought on board to do this song called Football's Coming Home, because the European Championships were being held in England in 1996, and it was Frank Skinner and David Baddiel, who were 2 comedians, and Ian Broody from the Lightning Seeds, and it was this great pop song, and it charted and it did really well, and football did come home. It was a great tournament, but England obviously have a notorious history with losing penalty shootouts. They at Euro '96 they beat Spain in a shootout, and it was this exorcising of the demons. This is where it's all going to change, and then they lost in the semi-finals in a penalty shootout to Germany. So I think in terms of it's coming home stuff and all those memes that are flying around Twitter and stuff, just let's remember what happened in '96 when you won a penalty shootout and then lost. Not too long after that. So I think everything in moderation, expectations in moderation, for England fans. Sweden are going to be very difficult to beat. They haven't got to this juncture of the competition.
And they played so much better than I thought they would play.
It's a very strange thing, because you look at their team, Sweden, and you're left scratching your head. You're like, okay, Marcus Berg, their striker, plays in the Middle East. Ola Toivonen plays in France. He can't get his game. And like offensively, you're thinking, how
Ibrahimovic in his day.
Yes, they don't even have that. They've got Sebastian Larsson still there, who has had trials and tribulations with Sunderland in the Premier League. You've had a couple. You have Grenquist, who's a terrific centre half, but you're trying to figure out like. How have they done this? Yeah. And it's kind of like a chemistry experiment, right? You think of a tournament and how you get a bit of belief and you get some good, strong personalities.
We just had an NHL season where a team in Las Vegas just proved that point.
Completely.
Saying on paper, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but if you're an English supporter, and I'm not,
I like how you preface everything with that.
Yeah. So if you're an English supporter and you look at Colombia is the tougher matchup in the round of 16 than what they're facing right now in the quarterfinal, don't you think? Like, shouldn't they be having a little bit of optimism that they beat a better Colombia team and now facing a weaker opponent, even though they're higher up in the draw now?
It's an interesting point. I still think that we haven't really seen much of England at this tournament.
Right.
You know, I think that that's what you get from a group that has Panama and Tunisia.
Yeah,
and then in a final game against Belgium, you rest all your players.
That was your only test, yeah.
You know, in terms of open play, have you created much? Harry Kane against Colombia scoring from a penalty. You know, you have to look at things within context.
Right.
Now, the thing is, will we even learn more about England in a game against Sweden? That's hard to figure out as well. You're not sure how that game is going to play out.
I'm guessing probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, or like it might be tight, it might be cagey, it might not be very offensive. So but what they do have is they do have Harry Kane, and they do have a guy who, when they need someone in the penalty area to grab a chance, Kane's the guy to do it. He's a natural successor, like it goes Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, now Harry Kane. That's really the trajectory of an English striker. They possess that kind of incredible nous just when you need it. You know, they're obsessed with scoring goals relentlessly, and Harry Kane's just another example of that. Like even the awarding of that penalty against Colombia was just incredibly clever from Harry Kane to win that penalty.
Right.
It's something that strikers do all the time.
Yes.
They wrap themselves around defenders. They want to
There's a
force
skill
the
to
defender,
it. Yes.
Yeah. They want to force the defender to grab as tightly onto them as they're secretly doing to the defender.
Right.
And hopefully the referee will see it from a certain perspective and give a penalty, and it works a treat.
Yeah.
And that's just the mentality of a striker. And that's what England possess. And if they're going to go far in this tournament, it's really going to revolve around Harry Kane, because you know, you look at Raheem Sterling has contributed in his own way, a lot of off the ball stuff, which is very impressive. You don't see it on cameras, you don't see it on that kind of wide angle, but Sterling for me has been very, very good. Lingard obviously scored a great goal against Panama, but you can kind of delete that game really from the record books because it doesn't really tell us anything. So it's still England. They're still a difficult one to really to try and properly understand. The one big thing about them is that in terms of a coach and in terms of a leader, Gareth Southgate is a really smart guy. Very quiet, very unassuming,
influence on
and
the team.
very calm.
Yes.
And you could see that even with penalties. It was the two shootouts to contrast. On one hand, you had we mentioned Spain against Russia.
Yeah.
When that game went to penalties, Fernando Hierro, the Spanish coach, had no idea who was taking the kicks, in what order they were going to be taken. You know, you could see it play it out. The cameras are following them on the field, and he's pointing at guys and asking them, "Do you want to take one? Do you want?" And you quickly learn it.
Men's rec league.
You quickly learn in the moment. Hang on a sec.
Devin, you're not kicking. Okay, you've never even played soccer before.
Yeah. Or like, there's a great clip doing the rounds from Spanish TV. Coque, who missed the one of the kicks in the shootout. Hierro, the coach, is saying, "Oh, Coque, will you take one?" And Diego Costa comes up to Hierro and says, you shouldn't allow Coque take one. And Hierro says, goes back to Coque, "Are you okay to take one?" Coque is obviously, "Yeah, no, I'll take one." And when he misses, all of the Spanish players are lined up with their arms around each other. Diego Costa steps out of the line and looks at Hierro and says, "I told you."
Oh, Diego Costa, it's so funny watching him play, because he reminds me in the hockey, he's Dustin Byfuglien. He's this big thuggish guy that, you know, he's more skilled in the box than probably maybe, you know, people don't give him credit for, because he actually has a finesse. But he's also the guy that looks like he's coming to your house at night going, "You owe me, you owe some money to Manuel, and you gotta pay, man." Like he's a bit of a thug out there.
Dustin Byfuglien, as my wife. Yeah, our beautiful time spent in Winnipeg.
That's how it's
spelled.
Oh, that's right.
Whose name we can't pronounce. Did he have an incident with a boat?
Yes, he did in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Leave him alone. There's nothing wrong with drinking on a boat, by the way. Get off his back.
It's funny the things that come back to your head. But yes, Diego Costa and Dustin Byfuglien is a good comparison.
When you look at, for North American terms, that bracket, when you look at Sweden, England, Russia, Croatia, that's what you're going to meet up. Is there a scenario that Croatia isn't by far, heads and tails, the best of the four? And who would have thought that at the beginning of the tournament? 33-1 to win it all. I think they're going to be in the final.
From a neutral perspective,
yes,
that's the team you want to be there. It's a very romantic story. You know, Croatia 20 years ago got to the semi-finals. Quite, unfairly, I use that term in kind of inverted commas, lost to France. Lilian Thuram scored twice in a very memorable game. I don't think he ever even scored for France ever again, except for those two goals in the semi-final. And they've been through their various dramatic traumatic, turbulent stories domestically. But in terms of players who you really admire, Luka Modric, Ivan Rakitic, they're skillful ball players. And you talk about momentum, you talk about chemistry of a World Cup, and you talk about kind of big, definitive performances, and they got one in the group stage against Argentina. If they draw that game, you may not have seen such a kind of a cohesive effect on their squad. But suddenly in a group, you're having Argentina run around like headless chickens, and you're responsible for that. You're in control of this great result. And I think it that taps into belief and developing that within a tournament. And also, like what you said, they're on the right side of the draw. Yep. It's very, very difficult if you're one of those teams. Very, very quickly, you had Germany get eliminated, Spain get eliminated, and Argentina get eliminated. You have England facing into a game against Sweden today. Really, they should be facing Germany.
Bingo.
Right.
That's how it should work. So I mean, that's what I predicted in my head. Okay, yeah, they'll get through Colombia, but they'll get knocked out by Germany in the quarterfinals, because that's the way that it should go in your head. It's all ripped up now. Croatia head into a game against Russia. Yeah, Russia is the hosts. Yeah, they'll have support and blah blah blah. Russia, in terms of technical quality of players and performance level of players and caliber of player, fade in comparison to what Croatia possess. So I mean, you look at, it's absolutely kind of remarkable talking about Croatia possibly being in a World Cup final. You cannot definitively predict anything in this tournament.
Before we get to you, Mike, 1-0 France at the half.
Oh,
1-0 France at the half.
Okay.
Or 1-0 France at the half.
And people, they are called cocks, just so you know.
Le coq sportif.
Yeah, see, right? See, right there. Cocks. French cocks. The Brazil-Belgium game, I look at it, I'm like, oh boy. Like, of all the games I'm looking at, I'm like, okay. The only thing that I would say about it, it's seemingly, because Belgium I always think they've got a great program and they got great players, and anytime, like a guy like Kevin De Bruyne, he creates space. Like, it's so hard to do at the highest of levels because they defend the ball so well. But when you see these guys who are able to do that and create space and get in, and so they can get that shot. I mean, he does it every Saturday that I watch the Prem, and I just wondered, though, is Brazil saving their best for last, and do they still have the kinds of players, which I think they probably do, where on the back end of Belgium they might be slightly susceptible. So I do think that the Belgium certainly Brazil is favored, but if Belgium, it's not like it's David and Goliath here. I mean, it's kind of two Goliaths. I think Belgium's very, very good, but I still think Brazil probably gets by.
And I also would say, for people listening, if you have a chance to just skip out of work for a couple of hours today, park yourself in front of a TV screen, the closest one to you, and watch this game.
It should be magic.
This has all of the ingredients that would fuel a World Cup classic, and they don't come around too often. There's very few of them, when you look at your history books. But when you look at how these two teams match up, you look at the personalities that will all be on the pitch simultaneously. This for me, and it's difficult. You always have that part of you that's quite cynical. You don't want to build up something too much,
right?
But you mentioned Belgium, that performance against Japan. For a long period, it was so poor.
I was staring at the TV there. You got to be kidding me.
Japan 2-0 up.
Yeah. Japan
also good value for being 2-0 up. I mean, it's obviously you could see from their faces when they scored that opening goal. This is incredible. We're beating Belgium 1-0. This is unlikely.
Yeah, surprise.
But then they go, however, 2 minutes later, and curl a shot in from 25 yards straight to the corner. I mean, it wasn't just, we're going to play the percentages here and hold on to what we have. They went for it, and it's 2-0. And then you talk about small margins, you talk about big moments. Jan Vertonghen with a header that he's trying to send back across goal. He gets it all wrong. The goalkeeper comes out trying to read the header that's going to go across goal, and it loops completely over his head. Yeah. And you look at each other thinking,
okay, here is the great comment from my beautiful wife whose parents are Dubs, and she looked at the television and she said, well, that was too high for the Japanese guy.
Oh, no.
I said, I know. It's a little unfair, I think.
As he's watching it over his head to the corner.
But that was like, you could just feel that arrow, and I thought, do they? And I thought, oh, God, they do. They got time.
That's the moment, because suddenly there's the momentum swing, and you can't blame yourself and go, we made a fatal error, or they've totally outboxed us. It's just a moment. It's a kind of a freakish moment, and it leads to a 2-1 situation. And then from there, Martinez is clever with his substitutions. He holds on for as long as possible. Fellaini sprung from the bench. You know what's going to happen. Azar, who's been terrific in this tournament, sends in a gorgeous cross. Fellaini does the rest from close range. 2-2. And at that stage, you're thinking, right, hang on. It's a matter of time now.
Yeah.
Can Japan hold on? But the winning goal from Belgium, I talked about this quite recently. From end to end, you don't see this very often in football now. Normally, football's a game. It's calm. You put your foot on the ball. You recycle possession. You wait for support. It's very kind of not robotic, but there's a lot more patience involved. This is Japanese corner kick. It's a poor one. They take another risk instead of just holding on for extra time. Keep that ball in the corner, run down the clock. Mm-hmm. You go for it. Courtois catches it, and then it's De Bruyne who is the big key to this, straight through the middle of the pitch. And obviously his teammates have such confidence in him in terms of his awareness, what's happening around him. He's going so quickly right down that center of the pitch, but he knows what's around him all the time.
Right.
And it's almost like a training ground goal. You have an overlap on the left-hand side. Lukaku knows that too. Yeah. He plays a gorgeous dummy, and it's a tap-in for Nasser Chadli, and it's 3-2, and Japan are out of the World Cup. Now, in terms of that goal and that moment, that is a superb, special World Cup moment. And also, in terms of that momentum, Belgium are leaving that pitch, leaving that stadium, thinking, not we haven't got out of jail, we've won that game.
Yeah.
Because, again, like that, they get a possession from the corner. They might just think, we've been doing well to get it into extra time. We've got it back to 2-2. We've done okay here. Instead, they're programmed to go for it. Yeah. Belief in themselves, belief in their own ability as footballers, and they create a really special World Cup moment. I don't know how much we know about Brazil yet in this tournament.
Well, don't let that secret out of the bag, because as I've been telling people, when you're an expert journalist you do a lot of research and you get information from different places. So Owen phoned me up last night. He said, Mike, he says, I have to be honest. I get all my Brazilian information from a particular Brazilian football show. I said, you do? He goes, do we have time to show it? Okay, so courtesy of Owen O'Callaghan, from Cork.
Yes.
Here is the Brazilian football show where he gets all his information. Let's roll this.
Vamos fazer o seguinte, ó. A Emily, pra quem não sabe, gente, a Emily, ela é campeã de futsal. Falei muito nisso, viu? Emily, você deveria ter dado uma dica pras meninas. Falei pra elas, tem que ficar uma no gol, proteger o gol. A outra...
I see what you're saying.
Ok. Vai, Letícia! Vai, Letícia, vai pro meio.
So I think they're saying... So here's the reenactment. This is where you get your strategy. And, yeah, this is... So what they're saying is they're not going to park the bus. That's what I'm getting from this.
This is what this says to me is it's a high press. They're really gonna push high. I mean, Neymar probably defensively out of the game.
I think she's Neymar. She's the one who she's rolling there,
and also this is a kind of it's a nice reflection of what they're going to do with Casemiro not being there. I think in that midfield and what they're going to do as a result of that.
See, well, this is why you watch that show, obviously.
And they're very subtle about it as well. Which I can know from the naked eye, it's very, very difficult. But for football aficionados,
there goes Neymar again.
Exactly
boy, I'll tell you. So we practice that. There you go. See, there you go. There's, you have to appreciate where all information comes from, I believe.
Completely. We should all be sponges and absorb as much as we can.
Well done.
So are we saying France, Croatia, Brazil?
No. France would play.
No. Who's winning in the matchup? So France, Brazil, Croatia, England.
I predicted France to play Brazil in the semi-finals.
Okay.
So I kind of have to stick with that prediction. On the other side of the bracket, I have to admit that outside of England, and I think it might just be one of four, I didn't have any of the other three reaching this stage of the competition. So I had England losing in the quarterfinals. Obviously, that was based on them meeting Germany. I still think that Sweden might do England.
When you start talking about these I said if Cavani wasn't hurt, then I'm looking at this France game and I'm thinking they got a shot. They're going to try. I mean, if they play defensively like they normally do, they're going to wait for that one, and that's how Cavani's got. I mean, these magical sort of moments, which is why the World Cup is. People were saying, all this soccer talk. What about all that? I said, what do you mean? Well, it's not the Super Bowl. No, truly, it's not the Super Bowl.
Do people say that?
Oh God, yeah. Well, they don't understand. They don't get it.
They're kind of the World Cup,
versus
Super Bowl.
So the Super Bowl might, collectively, I don't know if a billion people would watch the Super Bowl.
It does well, but it's not at the World Cup level.
For one,
I mean, there's not really it doesn't bring countries to its knees like it would do. It
brings North America and then sputtering countries across. Here and there.
But we're talking about the world's most popular sport.
I just kind of find it really funny that people would still say
just
stuff
does.
like that.
I mean, and you know what? That's a very almost antiquated. That's a very fading attitude. Up until I'd say 2001, I was one of those guys. I didn't know anything. Okay. I knew zero about any sort of football. It was a bunch of guys in shorts who couldn't touch the ball with their hands. Oh, don't put your hands. And then rolling around and my head, and Italian guys on the ground. And I was like, it was all shite to me. I didn't really care about it.
Okay.
And then I bet on the game.
Were you in Ireland at the time?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't making an accumulator. And I bet all of a sudden that was it. And then what happens is then you no longer have to bet on it. You're just watching it.
Yeah.
And when I say watch it, I'm online, in the secret world of all the pirate, where I'm watching the African Cup of Nations. My son's going, what is that with all the drums and the noise? I go, oh, it's just Burkina Faso against another. What? It's because all of a sudden I'm just enamored by. And so, if we look at the demographics, there are some sports that are literally dying on the vine. Have you seen the attendance for Major League Baseball? And the numbers?
Terrible.
They're getting crushed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the reason is that young people are gravitating to sports that are there's more action to it, and that there's a perception, I think, that those participating in that sport are truly the best in the world at that thing. So all of a sudden, you find kids in high school, elementary school, like they would know who Neymar is.
Yeah.
They understand teams in the Premiership, but not only that, they also understand, when you have the Ronaldos of the world, when you have these massive stars, you'll see jerseys. My wife is a public school teacher, elementary school teacher, and kids will wear soccer jerseys. That would never happen in our day. I mean, if someone brought like a Liverpool or or got the big one of an Arsenal or a Chelsea, something really big, but someone wasn't coming wearing a Burnley. Burnley. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
Or what's the? Here's my favorite name because I have bet on this team, Scunthorpe. Is there anything more English sounding than Scunthorpe?
Hey, go to Scunthorpe. That's your next step right there. I mean, just a little tour.
That's right.
Getting a question live on our YouTube channel. Lots of kudos to you, Owen, from this viewer, and he asks you, and we'll chime in on this one. What's been your favorite goal? My goal of the tournament. I got one in my head. If you want me to say it, I can.
That's a tough. There's been a bunch of beauties.
I like the Ronaldo penalty kick against Spain.
Okay.
Where he curls it in, finds the top right. Scores. I believe it was his third of the game, and it was a 3-3 draw at the end of it. That was my favorite goal.
Gee, I don't know if I have. I don't know if I can think of one.
There was a few of them. There has been a few of them.
There's been saves. I could almost go to moments where some of these saves in the penalty kicks have been phenomenal.
Oh, it's been incredible when you're going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like Pickford had one for England the other night where he's actually going the wrong way, but he still manages to stick that left hand up and claw it.
He's pretty cocky in that interview after the game, though. Some of the things like, "What I've been studying a lot. I look at it on film. It went the other way. He went the other way, and I knew I could get." And I was like, "You knew? Didn't know?"
The France-Argentina game had a couple of absolutely amazing strikes. The right back for France. Which is pretty much the identical goal that Nacho scored for Spain against Portugal. He cuts basically he almost like dissects the ball the way he kicks it.
Sure.
So it swerves and it goes in off the far post. I think that's probably my favorite goal of the tournament. Yeah. There's obviously the goal that that Shadley scored for Belgium was really special, just for a completely different reason.
Sure, the third, that's right.
Yeah, but they'd probably be my two. And also, I apologize because every game rolls into the next one in my head. So when someone kind of puts you on the spot and says, "Oh, what's your favorite?" You're like, "What goals have been scored? Actually, can you remind me?" Because you just forget everything. But they'd be my first two, I think.
No, all good, good. Yeah, these questions are off the spot anyway.
Yeah,
we don't know what's coming.
I mean, it's not usually very fair to look at a set piece goal. So like, the free kick from Ronaldo against Spain, you go, oh yeah, but it was a dead ball. It was stationary
that's
when
true.
He hits it.
That's true.
But it's a remarkable strike, so you have to give it the respect it deserves as well. Who's
been the best player of this tournament?
Oh,
not the Golden Boot winner, but the best player.
It's a great question. Well, you probably, as of right now, I mean, you look at Uruguay are probably at the quarterfinal stage because of their defense. Their two centre halves, Jimenez and Godin, are outrageous. They don't give anything away. So they've been really, really solid. Mbappe had the performance of a lifetime against Argentina,
and that was just I to allow him to do that to me was inexcusable.
Oh yeah,
I mean inexcusable.
Yeah, but also you have the tactics that Argentina were deploying. You allow so much space behind you, so that all it takes is for the young, really, really fast guy to get a run on you.
Yeah.
And he's just gone past you so quickly, and there's all that space left in behind. So tactically, they were really kind of showing up a little bit, Argentina as well.
Well, I got a question for you. When you're sitting there watching this, and we'll wrap up here shortly, but if you're Ireland, you're the national team, and you're watching all of this going on, and you look at what wins, what doesn't win, and again, it's also in the moment, so you're not changing necessarily your whole strategy. But the one thing when you're backing the lads, and you're coy big and all that. It's not a program that plays with pace. It's not. They don't have the types of players that are going to break away. They don't have height necessarily. They're not a size team. They're just always a very solid team, and you pray for a goal, not early, maybe 80th minute, something like that, and then they play their guts out. I mean, a lot of red faces, a lot of sweating, a lot of pushing,
a lot of stereotypes going on.
There's a lot of stuff going on. Can it change? Because if they don't, they can't get to what they're seeing now. I mean, there must be sort of the heads that gather at some point. In Canada did that, Dave, with their hockey.
Yep.
They had this summit saying, okay, we're not beating everybody like we should. So what is it that we got to do? And Hockey Canada, from the roots on up, from the ground on up, decided that they were going to do that. Can Ireland actually do that, or is it just inconceivable that you could change philosophically and other ways
it's
as well?
It's very difficult because you have to firstly look at the fact that it was 1988 before we even qualified for any tournament. So we've always been a very, very small place, and we've always just had to fight for everything. And if we get a little bit of a lucky break, it's great. And we got to a European Championship in 88. We got to a World Cup for the first time in 1990, and the country shut down.
Right.
I mean, it just shut down because we couldn't cope with the celebratory nature of this. What is little old Ireland doing at these tournaments? This is incredible. This is a seismic moment for the country, right? This is economic recession. People lost everything, and in the middle of it, you had a football team. People remortgaged their houses to go to the World Cup in Italy to support this team.
Good God!
This is what it was. So that's what it means to the country. But that's changed now. The football, we've removed ourselves from the Jack Charlton era. Our culture of football is pretty rigid. I mean, we don't really promote creative playmaking players. We never have really had them. If you look at the history of Irish football, Wesley Houlihan, who was just stepped away from the Irish game, it took him a very, very long time to even get an opportunity with the senior Irish team. When he was younger, they thought he was too small to even make it as a professional.
But if you go back into the country's history, but that football was an English game.
Yeah.
It's an English game.
Yeah.
And so people here don't understand necessarily the GAA and what it really truly makes Ireland sometimes special.
Yeah.
Which is that. It's the hurling and Gaelic football, which I love.
Yeah.
And they're played at certain pitches, but the English game is not played on that pitch. General. Or now it's not as rigid as it used to be. But
yeah, I mean, there was a rule change, and I think we're, as a country, we're kind of past that at this stage, because it taps into and also when you go back in Irish history, boring your listeners with a history lesson, what you say is correct. The kind of development of soccer in Ireland was coinciding with the Irish Free State. So you had a lot of British people based in army barracks in around the country. But once they left the country, the sport still existed because Irish people just love the sport. And I think a lot of people try to make that divide between traditional Irish sport and the garrison game, as it was referred to. Rugby obviously was something similar, but rugby is very, very classically English. Soccer has little bits from this sport, little bits from that sport. So even, you go back to the 1920s, Irish people had a huge admiration and obsession with this sport. It wasn't, this sport's English, we don't care about it. So I mean that's and as well as that, there's a big debate in Ireland at the moment. Obviously we've had a very successful rugby team. Rugby is a very, very elite game. It's only played to a very high level by a tiny percentage of countries, but yet there's a conversation in Ireland about this is now our national game, rugby.
Really?
Which
Wow.
the majority of sports fans in the country absolutely rubbished as a suggestion.
Right.
It was written in a national newspaper by, funnily enough, a former Irish rugby international. But the rugby will never have the impact and influence on the country that obviously the GA has, but also soccer. Like, soccer is responsible like that for these incredible national moments, like going back to 1988 and 1990, people getting on this huge adventure, seeing the country blossom in major tournaments. That's a special sort of background that you'll never ever reimagine or kind of reinvent. So soccer is always it's always very, very close to the public's heart, and probably that aligns itself to a modern day frustration, like what you've talked about. Aesthetically, the Irish soccer team over the last number of years, it hasn't really been the prettiest thing. You go back to the European Championships in 2012 under Gianni Trapattoni. We were in a very, very difficult group with Spain and Croatia and Italy, and that was a relative humiliation. But Euro 2016 with Martin O'Neill, we created another great moment. We beat Italy, we qualified for the knockout stages, we ran France very close. So you could argue that in a tournament situation, Ireland don't do too badly. The fans turn up. Everyone loves Irish supporters.
Yeah.
They're incredibly friendly. They're so loud, colourful. They bring a lot to a tournament.
I love the Koi Big. Koi Big is, I love it. And I know some Irish people kind of get annoyed by the whole moral victory sort of stuff. Everyone loves us when we go to tournaments sort of thing, and that becomes most important rather than results and performance. Right.
But the last time we were at a tournament, which was 2016, we got to the knockout stages, and France arguably were quite lucky to beat us. We got a man sent off and the game changed. Qualifiers are different. Qualifiers are laborious. It's long, and it's difficult for Irish fans to get properly excited about it. And also within context, Ireland's a small place, and when we do achieve something like qualifying for a tournament, we'll grab it and we'll enjoy it, because you don't know how long it's going to be until we enjoy it again. And obviously World Cup in a few years, I think the rule from FIFA is that every country will be allowed to compete at the World Cup.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Is that not that's their grand plan?
Come on down to Toronto.
Everyone
North
in,
America.
guys. It's just like Costco. Just everyone, just show your card on the way in. Just pick up what you want.
I think Costco actually has a team. I think Costco actually qualified as a nation.
I think so. Yeah.
Owen, thanks so much for coming in.
No worries, man.
A lovely job, and for those watching, probably appreciate a little more insight into, certainly Ireland, which we talk about, or as I said, God's people. They are God's people. They really are.
Love you for that.
They really are. I mean, saying, now you're talking about Good Friday. Now it's open.
What? We just become best friends? Yep.